Welcome back, everybody. So, another Mummy review, only the 2017 version of The Mummy. So, The Mummy, or this version of The Mummy, was directed by Alex Kurtzman. It was made on a budget of between 125 and 195 million US dollars and made 410 million US dollars in the box office. Cast in this movie, pretty big, I have to be honest with you. Consists of Tom Cruise playing a character called Nick Morton. We've also got Sophie Bout- Boutella. I think that's how you say her name. Boutella as Arminette. We've got Annabelle Wallis as Jenny. We've also got Russell Crowe playing Mr. Hyde, or Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. We also got Jake Johnson in this movie, plus many, many others. A few faces which are kind of familiar because they are British actors to me, which I have seen in like series over here in the UK. So, in this installment of The Mummy, we pretty much get exactly the same story as what we got from the 1999 version of The Mummy, but just with some subtle differences. And essentially, again, from the title of this movie, you can pretty much predict exactly what's going to happen. There is going to be somebody that does something in ancient Egypt, usually somebody of high power. In other words, this one is like a pharaoh's daughter who's in line to be the queen of Egypt or whatever. She's in line to be a big power. She basically then murders her father, her mistress, and mistress's baby, which, to be honest with you, those 2 seconds where that happened is the most spine-chilling murder scene I've ever seen in my life, and it sends a shiver down my spine just like that. She basically does this wrong, gets mummified alive, gets a massive great big curse put on her, and basically at some point in the future, thousands of years in the future, she's going to get woken up and come back and try and take over the world. That is essentially what a mummy story is. That's what we got from the 1999 version. It's also pretty much exactly what we got in the Mummy Returns as well. And pretty much every mummy movie that's been made. So, what do I honestly think about this movie? I've watched this movie twice now. So I watched this movie when it came out. I was not a huge fan of it, I have to be honest with you. I've now officially watched it twice. I watched it yesterday and I've had a whole day to think about it. And to be honest with you, I think I enjoyed it more the second time I watched it than I did the first time I watched it. Um, I think I noticed more the second time, and I just think of that I wasn't hoping it to be on the same power as the 1999 version, but obviously I expected a more of a modern take to this with a lot more better action sequences and better special effects and visual effects in this movie. And yes, it does produce that. There is a lot better quality because obviously it's 20 years, less than, well, 18 years down the line that this movie got released. So yeah, I do enjoy this movie more the second time around. That being said, I'm not saying that this is anywhere on par of the 1999 Mummy movie. Okay, all I'm saying is I've watched it twice now. The first time I watched it, I was like, okay, yeah, it's not the best, but I was still entertained. I've watched it the second time, and I was still entertained. So all I'm saying is that it is just for me an entertaining watch. The problem is we've already kind of seen this already happen. And like I said, there are subtle differences in this movie. And in other words, it's mainly focused around Tom Cruise. His life is pretty much in danger from the moment he discovers that tomb and basically shoots that chain. And it's pretty much mainly evolved around him, his involvement. And you got Armitage, who is got a goal here. She is doing what we've seen before. She gets reawoken, she sucks the lives out of people to regenerate, and she has this master plan to basically pretty much rule the world with her right hand man, basically, who is also potentially going to be a god, a living god. And that's essentially the story. And that is all the story is. There's, I don't think, I think there's mention of her bringing darkness across the whole world or just running the world or whatever, but the story is literally evolved around Tom Cruise's character, which I think is just a little bit of a problem. There's not much depth to the story in this movie. Okay, there's not much depth at all. I personally don't think. Yes, there's a backstory here. there is backstory to do with the dagger and the gem, and it's all about this dagger to basically put this evil monster into Tom Cruise so they can lead, and it's obviously going to be that fight between good and bad. Honestly, on a power, if I was to choose between the two stories and the two movies, it would always be the 1999. Don't get me wrong, visually, this movie is pretty much a spectacle. There is some very good action sequences in this, and there's some very, very good stunt work, plus special effects, visual effects, plus even practical effects in this movie. There are some practical effects in this movie as well, which just work really, really well in certain respects. It is heavily reliant on CGI, I have to be honest, in certain areas, but you know, it lacks something for me. It hasn't, and I know I'm keep comparing this to the 1999 version, but there was more to the 1999 version. This one was more made for Hollywood to try and make as much money as it could possibly make, and it shows as well because yes, visually it's a spectacular kind of movie with lots of CGI, lots of special effects, lots of different action sequences, stunt work, and all that kind of stuff. Tom Cruise doing what he loves best, his own stunts and all that kind of stuff. You get to see all that, but story-wise, there's not a lot to it. The only saving grace is it's like this movie is the flagship to the Dark Universe, the Universal's Dark Universe, and flagship movie which never, because this movie didn't do that well, they never really got to capitalize on that Dark Universe, which is a shame really, because I would like to have seen that play out, because this movie has more of a darker tone than the 1999 movie, but it just doesn't seem to work for me personally. Like I said, I'm still entertained by it, but I have to admit I am comparing the two movies on a certain respect here, and I could watch the 99 one simply over and over again. Performances in this movie, again, Tom Cruise's character, or Tom Cruise in here, is pretty much playing every other character, or a lot of other characters he's already played, to be fair. He's just this action hero that's just there. You know, he constantly it seems like he plays the same character a lot in different movies. And you do get some character development with him, but not a huge amount. They briefly touch on this as well. The main character development you get to see in this is Armitage, which you expect anyway, because you need to set up the storyline of this movie. And rest of the characters in here, there are brief kind of backstories to them, but you don't get a strong emotional attachment to any of them. And that's the biggest problem I had with this, is you never get a strong emotional attachment to any of these characters. And you know, you don't feel like you're getting involved as such. All I feel when I watch this movie, knowing I've watched it twice, is I'm just watching it for all the visual and action. That's literally all I'm watching it for. There's no character development there, or that sense that you can get an emotional attachment to any of these characters in any way, shape, or form. Even Armitage, even though she's like the main villain in this, and you know that she was hurt, but you don't get that kind of sense of, you get a character development, you get a backstory to her, but there's, you know, like, if you consider like Arnold Vosloo's mummy character, even though you know he's evil, you do actually kind of enjoy him on screen, and you don't really get that sense with her character in this movie. So I could it's a strange way. I mean, the performances, like I said, wouldn't there for me. They just seem to be just characters in a visual effects movie, basically. That's all they kind of felt like to me. But some saving graces on this movie as well. Well, there's mainly two. Russell Crowe's character, Doctor. I lost track. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. His character. You only see him a handful of times in here, and there was one scene in here where you get to see him turn into Mr. Hyde. It's one of them. I know I get mixed up on him a little bit, and I generally liked his transformance. It's just like a flip of the switch kind of transformance, and I generally liked his character in here, and you didn't really get to see a lot of it, especially when he starts to turn. I actually really enjoyed it when he started to turn. This then leads on to a certain bit of this movie which I wanted to talk about, and I've left it to the end of this video pretty much, is that in that same sequence where Jenny is being chased while they've locked down Russell Crowe's character in the room while he is changing, they're going through an archive and they knock off a book. And if you've seen this movie at least more than once, you know the book that gets dropped onto the floor is the Book of the Dead from the 1999 The Mummy movie. Now, which suggests to me that's either a nod to the 1999 Mummy movie, or it's part of the same universe. And this isn't a reboot as such, it's just that the events of Armitage happened before everything to do with Imhotep. No, you know what I'm trying to say. I'm getting confused with my names. Is that this happened before everything happened to do with the Mummy, that time period. So it suggests to me that this has already happened. It just suggests to me it's part of the universe. It's the same universe. It's either that or it's just a complete nod to the first 1999 Mummy movie, or it is part of the same universe. To the point is that this has already happened, and everything that happened in the first Mummy Returns, Tomb of the Dragon, which I haven't seen. I haven't seen the third Mummy movie, which I'm going to be very, very soon, is like almost like the trigger to starting off this organization to protect the world from evil. I could be completely wrong. I could be way off point here, but that's generally what I think. But, you know, that's just a theory that I've got. So if I was to rate this movie, I would only give this a 5 or 6 out of 10. Okay, now I've watched it twice. Like I said, it just seems like they've chucked in a load of characters, and the main focus of this movie is the visual, special effects, stonework, it's just basically classed as an action movie to a certain respect. There's not a huge amount of character development in here. You do not. I personally didn't find to get that emotional attachment that we had in the past Mummy movies, and it just certain things just fell off. There wasn't a huge story here, and it's something. There was differences. There are different twists and turns in this movie, compared to what we've had beforehand. In other words, you know, the incident of like Tom Cruise's character being the vessel to host this other big strong power to be Amitep's kind of right hand man kind of thing. Yeah, you get that. There is subtle differences to this movie, but for me, I find it entertaining, but it's not a movie that I can keep going back to watch. And that's just my honest opinion on this. It just seemed off for me. I'm not, like I said, I'm not saying it's an absolutely diabolical movie, but I would always choose the 1999 Mummy movie over this one. And I wish this this movie was a little bit better, because I would like them, Universal, to really explore into their dark universe. And it does, you know, carry darker tones compared to what we've seen before. Plus, I want to know what everybody thinks about the Book of the Dead appearing in this movie. Have you got the same theory as I am? Is it just a nod to the 1999 Mummy movie, or is it part of the same universe? And all the events of what happened in the 1930s with Rick O'Connell is what started this organisation to protect the world from evil. Please tell me what you think. Put it in the comments down below as normal. I hope you all have a great rest of the day, whatever you're doing. Please take care, and goodbye.